Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. The smell of grilled burgers and sweet corn drifted through the park, mixing with the sound of kids running around and the chatter of my relatives. It was our annual family reunion, and as usual, everyone had something big to brag about. My cousin Daniel was showing off photos of his new 3-story house, and Aunt Carmen was talking loudly about her recent real estate win, practically shouting over everyone else so no one could miss it. I sat at the far end of the picnic table, picking at my plate of potato salad and half listening. No one asked about me, not really. Every now and then someone would glance my way, give me a polite smile, and then turn back to the conversation about promotions, new SUVs, or who had the nicest kitchen remodel. My name is Sofia Rivera. I'm 32 and I live in Chicago. I work for a nonprofit in educational technology. Basically, I design tools that help underserved schools get better access to modern learning platforms. It's not glamorous, and I don't make much money, but it's meaningful work. Not that anyone here cared. So, Sophia, Aunt Carmen finally said, her voice dripping with fake interest. Still working at that. What is it again? That computer charity thing? It's an education nonprofit, I said quietly. We build... Before I could finish, Uncle Miguel cut me off with a laugh. Nonprofit means no profit, right? Maybe you should get into real estate like Carmen. She just sold a house for $700,000. Imagine what you could do if you aimed higher. The laughter that followed burned in my ears. I forced a smile, gripping my fork tighter than I should have. I wanted to tell them that I wasn't broke or lazy, that my work was changing lives. But explaining that to people who measured success in square footage and car brands felt impossible. Then Grandpa stood up. He was the patriarch, the voice everyone listened to. He tapped his cane against the table for attention. I'm proud of this family, he started, scanning the group. Look at Daniel, moving up in his company. Look at Carmen and Miguel, building real wealth. That's what success looks like. He paused, his gaze landing on me like a spotlight I didn't want. And then there's Sophia, he said. Sweet girl, but when are you going to start thinking about your future? You can't just scrape by your whole life. You're 32, no house, no husband, and working for pennies? What are you even doing with yourself? The entire table went silent. My face felt hot, and I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting for my response. My cousin Patricia smirked, whispering something to Roberto, who snorted with laughter. It was like they all agreed I was the family disappointment. I like what I do, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I work in educational technology. We're... Technology? Education? Grandpa waved his hand like it was nonsense. Those things don't pay the bills. When I was your age, I had 2 houses and 3 kids already. You need to think practically. I wanted to defend myself, to explain how our platform had just been adopted by 5 major school districts and how we were getting recognition from universities. But the words stuck in my throat. If I told them too much, it would sound like I was bragging or making excuses. So I stayed quiet, letting their comments sting. The rest of the table went back to their conversations, but I couldn't hear anything. I just sat there, staring at the picnic table's scratched surface, feeling like I was shrinking into myself. The conversation around the picnic table grew louder, circling back to me like a pack of wolves sensing weakness. Aunt Carmen tilted her sunglasses down, giving me a pointed look. You know, Sophia, if you're tired of barely scraping by, I could teach you the real estate game. It's easy money if you're smart enough to work the market. People are always buying and selling houses. It's not too late for you to start. Or sales, Uncle Miguel added, sipping his beer with a smirk. You've got a nice face and you're polite. You'd kill it in sales if you stopped wasting time on charity work. It's time to get a real job. Their words hit me like tiny stabs, not because I believed them, but because of how casual their dismissal felt. I swallowed hard, wishing I had the nerve to say that my charity work was developing technology used in dozens of schools, and that I earned more than enough to live on. But I knew it wouldn't matter. To them, success wasn't about helping others. It was about money, houses, and showing off. Patricia, my cousin, leaned in with a sweet but cutting tone. I don't get it, Sophia. You're so smart, but you still live in that tiny apartment, right? What is it, 1 bedroom? And that car you drove here, it's like what, 15 years old? I forced a smile. It runs fine. Roberto laughed. Or maybe you're just waiting for the right man to take care of all that. Grandpa's right. You're not getting any younger. A husband with a stable job could set you up for life. I stared at my plate, my chest tightening. The urge to defend myself bubbled up, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. They didn't care about the kids whose lives were transformed by the work I was doing. They didn't see the late nights or the breakthroughs when we rolled out new learning programs. All they saw was that I didn't have the material trophies they valued. Grandpa cleared his throat, clearly not done with me. You know what I think, Sophia? I think you've got potential, but you lack ambition. You could have been anything, a lawyer, a doctor, but you chose, what? Playing with computers? That's not a future. My mouth went dry. Every time I tried to explain my job, it felt like talking to a wall. I'm happy with what I do, I said softly, my voice shaking despite my effort to sound calm. No one looked convinced. Instead, Aunt Carmen leaned back, satisfied, as if the conversation was over and my failure had been confirmed. I was about to excuse myself from the table and find some quiet corner when the sound of engines interrupted the chatter. Everyone turned their heads as three sleek black SUVs rolled into the parking lot, stopping near our picnic area. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The laughter died down, and my relatives exchanged puzzled glances. "Who the heck is that?" Uncle Miguel muttered, shielding his eyes from the sun. The car doors opened, and a group of well-dressed officials stepped out. Among them was the mayor of Chicago himself, flanked by a couple of city council members and two men carrying camera equipment. My heart sank. I hadn't expected them to show up here, of all places. "Is that the mayor?" Patricia whispered, her tone caught between awe and confusion. "Yes," I said softly, but no one heard me. The mayor's eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on me. His face lit up with recognition, and he walked straight toward me, hand extended. "Sophia, we were hoping to catch you before you left. I wanted to thank you personally." I froze, every relative's gaze burning into me. Grandpa shifted in his seat, clearly confused. The mayor shook my hand warmly. "Your donation to the city's educational foundation, $100 million, is nothing short of extraordinary. You're changing the future of Chicago's schools." The silence around the table was so thick I could feel it pressing against me. Patricia's mouth fell open. Aunt Carmen's sunglasses slid down her nose as she blinked like she'd misheard. The mayor continued, turning to address everyone. "Sophia's nonprofit, Chicago Future Leaders, has built some of the most innovative AI-driven learning tools we've ever seen. We're partnering with top universities to roll out her programs citywide. It's not just about technology. It's about giving underserved kids a real shot at success." Uncle Miguel leaned toward Carmen, whispering something that sounded like, "Did he say 100 million?" The mayor gestured to one of the officials behind him, who stepped forward holding a framed certificate. "We're officially honoring Sophia as one of the city's leading innovators. Her work is revolutionizing education, and thanks to her generosity, we're launching a new initiative to equip every public school classroom with the resources they need." I felt my cheeks burn as I forced a smile, nodding politely. Meanwhile, my family sat frozen. Grandpa's face, usually so full of authority, looked almost pale. He clutched his cane with both hands, staring at me like I was someone he'd never met. "Chicago is lucky to have people like you," the mayor said, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "Your contribution will impact generations. On behalf of the city council, thank you." I mumbled something about being grateful for the chance to help, but I couldn't ignore the stunned silence behind me. My family, who moments ago had mocked me for my small apartment and thrift store jackets, now stared as if they didn't know what to say, or if they even knew me at all. The mayor didn't just thank me and leave. He stayed, speaking directly to my family like they were part of some impromptu press conference. "What Sophia has done for our city is truly remarkable," he said, his voice warm but commanding. "Her nonprofit, Chicago Future Leaders, isn't just a local effort. It's gaining national attention. Major universities are studying her AI-based programs to replicate them in other states. We're talking about education reform on a scale we've never seen before." I glanced at my family. Aunt Carmen, who seconds ago had mocked my thrift store jacket, looked like someone had knocked the wind out of her. Roberto's jaw was literally hanging open, his hot dog untouched in his hand. Grandpa, though, was the hardest to read. His face was stone, but his grip on his cane was tighter than ever. "Education is the foundation of opportunity," the mayor continued, "and Sophia is giving kids in our most underfunded schools a real chance. Last year alone, her programs helped increase literacy scores by 40% in pilot districts. That's a game changer." My heart pounded. I wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially not with my family watching. I shifted my weight from one foot to the other, feeling a strange mix of pride and discomfort. I'd worked so hard for this, yet hearing it laid out like this, especially in front of the people who had dismissed me, made me feel exposed. Then the mayor smiled at me. "We have one more announcement," he said, turning back to the crowd. "The new City Learning Center, funded by Sophia's donation, will carry her name. The Sofia Rivera Learning Hub will stand as a symbol of what one person's vision and dedication can achieve." There was a ripple of applause from some park visitors who had gathered nearby, but at our picnic table, no one clapped. My family just stared, like they were trying to piece together the puzzle of who I really was. Aunt Carmen finally found her voice, though it was barely a whisper. You donated $100 million?" I hesitated, not wanting to make it sound like I was showing off. "It wasn't just me," I said softly. "We've built partnerships and raised funds for years. I just made the final commitment to push it forward." Grandpa shifted in his seat, his face hardening. "So, all this time, you were sitting there acting like you had nothing. Why didn't you tell us?" I looked at him, feeling that old knot of tension in my stomach, because it's not about the money or the spotlight. It's about the work. He didn't respond. For once, the man who always had a lecture or a judgment ready had nothing to say. His silence was louder than any criticism. The mayor shook my hand again, congratulating me one last time before heading back to his SUV. As the convoy drove off, the park seemed strangely quiet, as if my family was trying to process what had just happened. I looked around at their stunned faces. This was the same group who, less than an hour ago, had told me to get a real job and find a husband to take care of me. Now they couldn't even look me in the eye. The silence after the mayor's departure was heavy, broken only by the distant hum of a lawnmower somewhere across the park. My family, once so loud and full of opinions, sat frozen like they weren't sure what to do with themselves. No one reached for the potato salad or the drinks. No one spoke. It was Grandpa who finally broke the silence. He cleared his throat, gripping his cane, and said, "Sophia, I think I owe you an apology." His voice, normally sharp and commanding, wavered. "I spoke to you like you were wasting your life, but I see now that I was wrong. I didn't know." Hearing that from him felt strange. Grandpa never admitted he was wrong about anything. I nodded, not trusting my voice just yet. Patricia, who had spent the afternoon smirking at my small apartment and cheap car, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "I'm sorry too, Sophia," she said, her tone softer than I'd ever heard it. "I didn't realize, I thought you were just, scraping by. I didn't think you were doing something this big." Roberto scratched the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. "We all assumed you weren't ambitious," he said quietly. "Guess we were the ones who didn't see the whole picture." Aunt Carmen looked like she had swallowed something bitter. Her voice cracked when she spoke. "I shouldn't have said those things about your lifestyle. I thought success had to look a certain way. New houses, nice cars, money in the bank. But you've built something that actually matters. That's more than I've ever done." I took a slow breath, still trying to process the shift in the air. "I didn't live modestly because I had to," I said, my voice low but steady. "I chose this lifestyle because my work was always about the bigger picture, not about showing off. I wanted every dollar to go toward building something lasting for these kids. That's what matters to me." For once, no one interrupted. No one made a joke about me settling or needing a husband to support me. They all just listened. Grandpa nodded slowly, his eyes downcast. "We were so focused on the kind of success we understood, we didn't see yours. That was our mistake." It felt like a small victory, but I could still sense the old ways of thinking clinging to them. They were trying, but part of them still measured worth by traditional markers. Houses, cars, titles. I could feel it in their hesitation. Still, this was a start. The quiet that followed their apologies lingered, and for a moment, I didn't know what to say. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate their words. It was just hard to believe they were finally seeing me for more than my lack of a mortgage or shiny car. I took a deep breath and decided it was time to tell them the truth, or at least part of it. "I never told you about my work," I began, "because I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for what I've done. I wanted our family gatherings to be about family, not about my bank account or the projects I'm working on." Roberto, who had been quiet since the mayor left, finally spoke up. "But Sophia, your company, Chicago Future Leaders, it's massive, isn't it? What you're doing sounds bigger than anything I've ever done with my career." I smiled faintly. "It's not about size or money. It's about changing lives. We create educational tools for kids who'd otherwise be left behind, and seeing them thrive is worth more than any promotion or house could ever be to me. Aunt Carmen's eyes glistened as she listened. Her usual sharp tone softened. We didn't see that, Sophia. We thought success had to look like what we've always known. Money in the bank, the biggest car in the driveway. I'm so sorry we made you feel like less. It's not just you, I said quietly. I hid a lot from everyone. I still live in my small apartment and drive my old car on purpose. I don't need more. Every extra dollar goes back into the foundation. That's always been the point. Helping others instead of collecting things for myself. Patricia frowned, clearly struggling to understand. But don't you ever want more? I don't know. To feel comfortable? To enjoy what you've built? I am comfortable, I said with a small laugh. Comfort isn't about things. It's knowing I'm doing something that matters. It's the kids who tell me our programs help them read their first book or get into college. That's what I care about. Roberto leaned back in his chair, looking thoughtful. You know, he said, I work in finance, but I've never felt passionate about it. Hearing what you've done, it's impressive. It makes me wonder what I'm even doing with my life. Aunt Carmen wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. We failed to see your worth, Sophia. All we ever did was judge. I can't tell you how sorry I am. I nodded, appreciating her words, but I could still feel the gap between their old definitions of success and mine. They were trying to see things differently, but I could tell they weren't fully there yet, and maybe that was okay. The sun had dipped lower in the sky by the time I started packing up my things. The family was still unusually quiet, each of them lost in thought. For once, there was no bickering over who got the last burger or whose potato salad was better. It felt like they were all seeing me for the first time, and I wasn't sure how to handle it. Aunt Carmen finally broke the silence. Sophia, she said, her voice careful, almost hesitant. We'd love to learn more about your work. Maybe we could visit your office sometime? See Chicago future leaders for ourselves? I glanced at her, trying to gauge if this was genuine curiosity or just her trying to save face, but her expression was softer than I'd ever seen it. Sure, I said, if you really want to. Roberto nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, I'd like that too. I think I need to understand what it is you've been building all this time. Honestly, I feel like I've been living in a bubble. Even Grandpa, who usually had a ready-made opinion about everything, cleared his throat and said, maybe we all need to see what you're doing. It sounds important. More important than I realized. I smiled a little, though I could still feel the awkwardness hanging between us. I'd be happy to show you. It's not fancy, but it's real work that helps people. That's all I ever wanted you to see. As the reunion started winding down, I loaded my car with the leftovers I'd brought. My old Honda Civic looked even smaller and older now that my family knew who I really was, but I didn't care. That car was part of me, just like my little apartment and my habit of shopping at thrift stores. None of that needed to change just because they now saw dollar signs when they looked at me. Before I left, Grandpa walked up to me, leaning on his cane. Sophia, he said quietly, I know I've been hard on you. I thought I was pushing you toward a better life, but you found your own way, and I didn't see it. I'm proud of you. Hearing that made my chest tighten. I gave him a small hug. Thanks, Grandpa. That means more than you know. I got into my car, rolling down the window as I waved goodbye. My family waved back, still looking stunned, but at least there was no more judgment in their eyes. It was replaced by curiosity and maybe a little respect. As I drove away, the city skyline slowly came into view, and I found myself thinking about everything that had happened. For years, I'd felt like the outsider in my own family, the one who didn't measure up. Now they were finally starting to understand me, or at least trying to. I knew things wouldn't change overnight. They would still have their old ways of thinking, and I would still feel the tug of wanting them to see the world like I did. But for the first time, there was hope. I glanced at my phone on the passenger seat, already buzzing with new emails and messages from my team. The next few weeks were going to be crazy, media attention, meetings, maybe even interviews. But I felt ready, because no matter how small my car was or how modest my apartment looked, I wasn't just the quiet cousin anymore. I was Sofia Rivera, the woman who had built something bigger than herself. And maybe, just maybe, my family was finally beginning to see that.